Hello, my name is Mace Hall, and I am here on behalf of the One Lamb Mental Wellness Initiative here at Peachtree Road, where we talk to people about what is going on in our world around topics of mental health and emotional well-being. And we find that when folks talk about their own personal experiences, it's helpful for the rest of us to know that this is just a part of life and that emotional well-being is like all of health, and we need to be supportive in this. And at the church, that is one of our primary goals with the Mental Wellness Initiative here, is to have a safe space, a place of faith where we can talk about things we are all grappling with. Today, I am so excited because we have one of our own homegrown boys, young man, Owen McDaniel. Owen grew up in this church in the Atlanta area, and he went to the University of Georgia, go Dogs,
Go Dogs,
and graduated in 2019. Owen now lives in New York City, and he works for a digital marketing firm. Since 2022, Owen has been wonderful and has agreed to, even though he is living in New York, to continue helping the One Lamb Initiative, especially in areas as it pertains to mental well-being in our young adult population. And we are so grateful that you are doing this. So you founded the 2020 vision for our young adults, correct?
That's right. Yeah. So 2020 Vision is sort of a subset of the One Lamb Foundation. So, we're kind of focused on the 22 to 29-year-old age bracket, kind of just looking to encourage and foster conversation about mental health and wellness, particularly in the young adult demographic.
So are most of the participants young adults from this church or just the community, or?
Yeah, kind of a mix. I would say a lot of it is sort of the community and friends of mine that are sort of, have either been impacted or know, that I'm sort of passionate about it and supporting me, but as well as, looking to kind of expand and get the message out in the church. And we've had some participants from Peachtree Road join, and really just looking to be there for whoever's interested.
And do you generally meet here at Peachtree Road, or do y'all meet in the community?
Yes, so we have done sort of a mix of the two. A lot of them have been at the hospitality suite here at the church. We've also done, I think, just one meeting thus far at a Mellow Mushroom in the community. We're kind of looking at some sort of mix of the two as, being approachable and that's when sort of the community comes into play. But it's also great to meet here at the church and always have a place to be.
I want to know this. What fueled this desire? I mean, it's got to be hard running a ministry from New York that's in Atlanta, although your folks are here, and I know they're glad you come home as much as they can get you here. But what fueled the passion to do this? Yeah,
so really it's been, unfortunately, the loss of two very close friends of mine, that were kind of going through some struggles of their own, Sam Asbury being one and Stephen Taylor being the other. And really the two of them, I sort of grew up with both of them, in the Atlanta area. Stephen I grew up down the street from and have just been close with the Taylor family forever. Sam sort of played sports with growing up and then sort of went our own ways before actually kind of meeting back at the University of Georgia in the Sigma Chi fraternity, where he joined a couple years after I did. And kind of, reinvigorated that friendship. And unfortunately, I mean, two of the most infectious personalities that really I've ever been around, both just very funny, very charming, two people that I think captivated everyone that they were around and were very popular sort of in their peer group. But, for sort of separate reasons, but both under the mental health umbrella, took their lives, and Sam in 2020 and Stephen in 2021, so about a year apart. And those, two passings just really had a great impact on me. And I think, made me so aware of kind of the, crisis that was going on, not just, among sort of young adults, but young adults in my immediate, friend group and relationships. And so that's kind of where it started. And, there's been sort of constant unfortunate reminders that it's still very much a problem. And so I think that's those two individuals were definitely the sort of root of it. And from there, it's just, always been something that I've been passionate about and realized that we need to kind of, do something about.
I didn't know Stephen, but I knew Sam, and he played sports with my oldest son, and darling, great personality, and also extremely successful. Like he had, from the outside looking at him, you would say, this kid has it all going on. He's well-liked, he's smart, he's confident, he's very capable. Yeah. And I'm guessing your friend Stephen was probably the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's, I think, the hardest thing to kind of understand and come to grips with is just, seeing that from the outside of they do. I mean, there's seemingly no reason that sort of that suicide is even an option. It's on the table. But to them that is sort of the only way out of whatever they're going through.
Did you ever have, these were two very close friends. Was there ever any indication that either of them or both of them were struggling with depression or anxiety or anything abnormal or?
Yeah, so I think that they're two very separate sort of cases. Sam, no. The answer is no. Never would have, never any sign to me, never any sign to any of our friends that was going on. Stephen had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and so he had gone through, some of that had been through, to a couple of doctors to kind of understand what was going on with him, and so his was, there was something that was recognized and kind of obvious at the surface. Sam, not at all.
Not at all. So everybody was taken completely off guard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Since losing your two friends, have you sought any type to talk to anybody about the grief you're experiencing?
So I have not. I think that it's definitely a known thing that there are people to talk to, and I've been very fortunate that I've had a very good immediate surroundings of friends that I can sort of bounce those feelings off of. And I think that helps me personally. It's, everyone kind of goes through their, kind of grief in their own way. And I think that that is absolutely, pertinent for some people. And I certainly thought about it, but I've sort of found therapy in sort of just the day-to-day conversations with, the people that were also impacted by the losses.
So y'all, it sounds like y'all have built a really strong community to help build each other up and hopefully created a safe space within your friendship group and beyond where if you wake up one day and say, oh my gosh, this really happened. Yeah. There's somebody you can call and say, it hit me today. Yeah. That's the way grief works. Yeah. You're riding along great, and all of a sudden it just, bam, hits you, and you think, I really won't see that person again.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it goes in waves, for sure. And I think that, talking with the immediate relatives of Sam and Stephen, that it happens more often. I sometimes almost feel like bad that it, after maybe 6 months or a year or whatever, those feelings happen less often, and it almost, it's like, wow, like, I mean, that person is still gone, and I can never talk to them again, and so it can definitely come in waves. I think that everyone, it kind of hits everyone at different times, and I think that what I try to do is always just at least remind people that my, door is always open, that I'm always ready for a phone call. And that's how I kind of see everyone else in my life, is that if I am going through sort of a, grieving, that I can always pick up the phone and dial a friend, dial a family member. And I think I'm, extremely lucky in that sense.
I know your folks, you are. So like you have these events around mental wellness, specifically for young people. How have you gotten your speakers?
So the speakers have been, honestly, the first one, Taylor Wesley, was an individual that was dating someone that I was friends with. And so I had been aware of her story, and we had kind of talked about wanting to kind of get this kickoff event. And I want to say she was 27 at the time of when she came and spoke with us a couple years back. And that was just the kind of perfect kickoff for us, and kind of just fell in our lap. From there, we've kind of, been reaching out to different, clinics and different therapists kind of in the Atlanta area that we know are active in the space and in the community. So upcoming, we have Brian Stickney to speak, who I know is a member here, who we're very excited about. And then we've had a Doug Hurd from Skyland Trail, and then Austin Hunter, who I'm going to forget exactly which therapy office he works for, but he's also in the Dunwoody area. So it's been kind of a mix of outreach, and then a couple of people that have kind of fell into our lap that we've just been so excited and so welcome to host.
Well, Brian's going to be great.
Yes.
I am a huge fan of his. He is doing great things in this community. Which topics would you say draw the biggest draw when you have these talks? What do people gravitate to?
So I think it can be a lot of things. I think a lot of the people who we attract are, as we've talked about, you never know who is going through something that's difficult. But a lot of people that seem to sort of come to our events are looking for, how can I be there for others? And so I think that one common theme is like, how do I reach out to someone, or how do I understand if someone's going through something? How can I try to be there? And then also, how do I recognize someone who's going through something, in their own head that maybe we can't understand. So that's been one. I think the other is, I think suicide in general is something that a lot of people, unfortunately, in our sort of immediate circle have been affected by. And I think that does, it's very difficult to talk about. And when there's sort of someone who is maybe in the, therapy space and sort of understands some of the science behind it, that's also a topic that sort of resonates, and sort of why someone might go through that, and then how to sort of deal with it afterwards.
Before we talked, I said to Owen, in my own head, I grapple with, is mental wellness a bigger concern for our young adults than it was, like, say, when I was a young adult? We do know that suicide rates and attempts are higher than they've ever been, especially amongst males, about 20 to 29, or in that ballpark, young males, that is on the rise. But as far as depression, anxiety, addiction, cutting, eating disorders, all the things we associate, especially with younger people, especially the cutting and the eating disorders, I grapple with, is that on the rise with your age group, or in fact, is it that we know more about it? Because I have 3 young adult children, and one of the things I find to be just mystifying and remarkable is how unbelievably open they are talking about their emotions, especially negative emotions. Yeah. And I just, sometimes I'm like, okay, let's sit down and talk about this. Yeah. Do you have any, I'm looking at it as a woman who's 57 years old, and has it changed that we're getting more comfortable, which is what I hope? Or do you think that our society may be putting added pressures on our young people unwittingly that is causing more stress?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a, a mix of a lot of those things. I do think that there is more awareness, which is great in the sense that people understand more and are more willing to talk about it, and there's more sort of just publicity around it. That's almost a sort of a double-edged sword, though, in a sense, just in terms of like knowing that it's sort of that it is happening. But I do think it's tough for me to talk to. Is it more pertinent now than it was 40 years ago? Like I truly, I don't know. But something that I think is very obvious and is something that's known is just that 22 to 29-year-old male range is sort of the most affected. And I think it kind of goes from, high school, college, and then sort of that post-college are three very different buckets. In high school and college, you kind of the whole way you're transitioning from sort of being forced to be around your peers all the time. In high school, maybe 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock if you play sports, you're around your friends all the time, around people your age. College, it's kind of more of your choice of who you surround yourself with, and you can maybe get more reserved because there's not as much of a forced schedule. And then post-college, all of a sudden, you kind of have all of the freedom to do what you want. And, maybe especially now where you might not have to go into an office every day, you could very well find yourself, if you sort of want to, by yourself as much as you please, or as much as you're sort of willing to. So I think that kind of that transition of, okay, I'm always around my friends to maybe sometimes around my friends to all of a sudden I can be in my room for 10 hours a day and not even see anyone face to face. I think that's something that's really been, that's probably one of the things that's hardest for that 22 to 29-year-old age range, is how to deal with all these new pressures of a new job, of supporting yourself, and then also saying like, if I'm going through a tough time, I don't necessarily have to see anyone. Like I don't have to even put a face on if I'm going through certain troubles, which I think is something especially of recent with working from home that has likely impacted some of that more than previous years.
There's a professor at Yale named Lori Santos. I think I'm getting that correct. She's a psychology professor, and she has written a course called the Happiness Project. It is the most popular course at Yale, and you can take it for free online, and it is a condensed version of what she does for her students at Yale. And I personally, during COVID, because Lord knows I had all three children and my husband at home, and I needed something to focus on besides laundry and cooking. And she talks in this course about the lack that high school and college are these wonderful times in your life where you're surrounded with people. It's very hard, especially if you aren't doing online learning. Yeah. It's very hard to just be alone all the time because you're always with people. There's always something going on. You're always walking on a campus, passing by somebody your age, and then you leave. And I guess that's even become, that isolation has been magnified by the fact that so much is done remotely now.
Yeah, no, I think so. It's, it's one of those things that you're not prepared for. And like, I think, people always talk about kind of personal finance. Maybe there's not a class in high school about it. And, why are we not learning about these things that are so necessary for your, everyday life? And then, kind of on the same note is like, people don't just prepare you for kind of like living on your own and supporting yourself. And a lot of these things that come kind of in a whirlwind all at once, I think college used to be talked about a lot as everything changes. But I think after kind of going through it myself, I feel like you go through even more changes between going from college to going to, the real world in a sense.
Well, you're making me think of another thing. There's a book that was written by, I can't think of her name, a psychologist that works with just people in their 20s. She's in New York. I'm going to put it on the website. And it's called The Roaring Twenties. The Defining Decades. Your 20s is the most important decade of your life for where you're going to be in your 30s, 40s, and on. And she talks a lot about what happens in your 20s, that the growth, it's also this massive amount of change and growth. And the decisions you make really impact, where you're going to go next.
Yeah.
I'll get that title for you.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you this question, and you actually put this on your list of things you want to be asked, and I think it's very salient. What has been the most meaningful and impactful thing that has come from being the leader of this 2020 vision here at Peachtree Road?
Yeah, so I think that there's kind of been like three things that I've really taken away from, kind of the different speakers that we've had come. The first being mental health is such a large umbrella. There's not one thing. I spoke about Sam and Stephen kind of having very unique and different experiences with their challenges. And I think that that's something that's very important. We say mental health, it's great because it's so encompassing and it talks to, dealing something that's not necessarily able to be seen. But I mean, it can just mean so many different things. And so kind of understanding the mix of like true sort of brain chemistry that can go towards, some sort of, mental health illness or issue, as well as societal pressures that can maybe lead to that, to upbringing. And so I've learned that it just means so much. And so we say mental health, but like if there was one cure or one issue as it related to mental health, it would be a lot easier to handle. But what's so hard is that it can just mean so many different things. The second is, I think I spoke about this a little bit earlier, but I think I used to think of suicide as kind of a selfish act and something that how could you leave the people that care about you most to kind of deal with that grief? How could you, take yourself away from everything? And I think that's something that I've learned through a couple of these talks has been that it truly feels like the only option for the individuals who take that step. And they're at this point of all-time loneliness. They feel that they've exhausted all options. And speaking with a friend recently, and he was like, I never really understood that until recently, and that's something that I've certainly learned. And the last is just talking. Like that is truly the most impactful thing that I think covers most of like mental health. Is if you're able to talk about it, it helps so much towards taking a step towards making yourself feel better. Talking with others, checking in with your friends, with your family, with your people. And, the first part of that is just checking in and saying, hey, how are you? I haven't seen you in a while. To anyone, it can really, really mean something. But the second part is really trying to actually connect. I think a lot of the time we say, how's it going? You say, good. And that's kind of the end of it. Something I've tried to do, and I'm by no means great at it, is kind of trying to like evoke some feeling of not everything's rainbows and butterflies all the time. If someone says like, how's it going? Like even saying something like the job's kind of tough right now. We've got promotions on freeze and, I'm just kind of struggling with that. Saying that yourself, you never know what that might sort of open up from someone else who maybe is going through something that they weren't initially ready to talk about. That's kind of been something that I've really tried to work on recently, just because that's seemingly one of the ways that you can really, be there for someone who might be going through something tough.
You are light years beyond so many people because authenticity and humility and honesty are really, in my opinion at least, huge keys for how we are going to destigmatize our negative emotions and feelings. And we all have them. And I don't know what happened to cause at least in the South of the United States, which is the only place I've ever lived, for us to be so reticent to talk about what everybody is experiencing, whether it's sadness and loss or uncertainty and worry, or, even greater things like, I don't want to be here any longer.
Yeah.
So, well, I really appreciate you coming.
Yeah.
You're just great, and we appreciate everything you're doing for the church and for the young adults. And I know the event with Brian is going to be great. What's the date of that event?
That is Sunday, March 3rd. So I'm not sure if this will be up before then, but if it is, please, feel free to come through 1:30 Sunday, March 3rd at the Hospitality Suite with Brian Stickney. So
well, and it will be videoed. So
perfect.
In closing, we give thanks for folks like Owen who take their time. He's only in town for a few days to share his experience and his growth, his unwanted growth, but his real growth and passion that came upon losing two very dear people, and how he has taken what is an unimaginable, sad situation and decided to, in the context of his church, make a difference in someone else's life. And we are grateful for him, and we're grateful for everybody who takes this topic seriously and understands that the church and any faith-based organization is responsible for caring for your whole person, and part of that is definitely your fears and your worries. So we give thanks for you and all the other folks out there. Visit us on onelamb.org, and everything we do will be posted. Thanks.
And the last thing that I will add, I meant to plug them in earlier, but both Sam and Stephen, there's been foundations created in their name. The Samuel L. Asbury Foundation is doing great work. They have a golf tournament every summer in Atlanta to raise money and awareness for mental health. And then the WST Foundation, after William Stephen Taylor, is doing the same, raising awareness, raising money, kind of funding different things. But both of those are fantastic organizations, definitely worth checking out. So yeah, that's it for me.
Well, and that gives us all a way to do something really important and special in memory of our young people who have struggled, and a way to give back to their lives in a way that honors who they were. Thank you.